All right, and welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Rock M Radio. This is Dive Cuts. I'm your host, Sam Snelling. With me to my right, your right, everybody, if you're watching us on YouTube, on the right, Matthew J. Harris. Matt, how are you?
I'm well. I didn't appreciate you exposing me to all the rebounds Mizzou didn't collect before we went on air. I was in a good mood until I watched not rebounding happening, but otherwise I can't complain. Otherwise I'm well. So but I'm sure we're going to talk about all manner of not closing out possessions tonight. So I'll save that for later. I'll save my complaints.
Like, we are putting the synergy sub to really good use here, but yeah, I just like to. So this is a missed 3-point shot. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can watch. If you're just listening to us, this is when the game was tied, 6.5 minutes to go, 65-65. Jacksonville State missed a three. Jacob Cruz, a little bit of a flyby. Tamar Bates stands there. The ball goes off the back iron.
Watches his man sprint to the 50-50 ball.
And Tamar Bates barely recognizes that the ball is live. And yeah,
is this where 11 then hits a three off the reset too? Do they reset it? I think this is it. Yeah. Because they reset and then they hit a dagger three. Like somebody relocates 2 or 11 hits a three off that too.
Yeah, so, I just had queued up the whole playlist of offensive rebounds. So it doesn't give you the full context after that. But I can quickly consult here. 65-65. No, they did not hit a three at that point. So after it was 65-65, Mizzou followed up with a basket on the next the next score. Yeah, Mark Mitchell with a layup in the paint.
Nice.
Yeah. And then after that, Nicholson free throw and dunk good, I guess.
Yeah.
To give them their last lead, and then Missouri rattled off 13 straight.
Yep.
So that's what we just watched. If you're watching this on YouTube or you're with us tonight live. Hey, Dive Cuts live.
Immediately traumatized you.
Mizzou is 10-1. They're 10-1. The SEC continues to absolutely maul the rest of the country in college basketball. And Missouri is doing their part. That's the good news. They were the projected margin for the LIU game was 26, and they ended up beating them by 27. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it was somewhere around. I could look it up probably quickly here.
It was very close, but they either met it or went over, depending on
what service you used. The average margin was 26.1 points. That was if you averaged Pomeroy, Torvik, Haslam, and Maya, and Vegas set the line at 27.5 because a late three by LIU might have cost some people some money. Which is a lesson. Don't ever bet on bye games. Don't ever do it. Weird things happen in garbage time.
Gambling is bad in general.
But no, they came up they beat the margin by a point basically against LIU. The average margin last night was around 17 points, 17.3 to be exact. Missouri underperformed that margin by 6. It only cost him a spot in KenPom. Cost him 3 spots in net. I think I said afterwards on a social media platform that all things considered, the game flow probably had everyone spiking blood pressures, but in terms of like algorithms are agnostic, all they see is possessions, all they see is results. It didn't really cost Missouri much. So in that sense, it's even more of a crisis averted because they kind of rallied it back to the point where it didn't really ding them too much in their predictive metrics. It wasn't ever really going to help them in resume strength, but it's not going to, be like the Eastern Washington game where I think they dropped 7 or 8 spots because they really underperformed. So,
Yeah.
All things
Well,
considered,
and it's one of the things like you and I were kind of talking, I think on Slack earlier. And I mentioned like, the 3-point shooting, the points per possession. It was a low possession game.
yeah,
Played very much to Jacksonville State's liking, 62
yeah,
possessions. Missouri still scored 1.35 points per possession.
yeah.
Hot 3-point shooting helps. But that, like, good
Erases a lot of
offense,
sins.
likely offset some of the bad numbers that they picked up with their like defensive rebounding and preventing the other team from scoring.
And by countering on that, they hit. I mean, the projected number for their output was 83, so they hit the number on offense. So offensively, they did what they needed to do, but as we'll talk about, probably 5 or 6 points off what they needed to do defensively. It's not really hard to track how that overperformance happened for Jacksonville State. So that's one of those things where we spend a lot of time talking about how math can math. It's not really hard to explain how the math for Jacksonville State. They generated a crap load of extra possessions. What were they getting? Like 1.3 points per possession themselves, something like that. So
they ended up less than that. So they ended up at 1.17.
What was their points per shot?
Points per shot was 1.2.
So 4 extra possessions at 1.2, you get there. Like that's how Jacksonville State was able to do this. Was you look at the two, they shot the ball a little bit better than they had from 3, but their 2-point shooting was 47%. Like that's not bad. That's not bad. A little bit of an overperformance from the 3-point arc, but realistically, I think when I looked at it afterwards, they were credited with 24 points off putbacks. That's your margin closer right there for them. Was they were able to shoot a little bit better from 3, and they just wiped Missouri out on the glass and were able to convert that into secondary possessions. That's how you get there.
Yeah, the Tigers ended up minus 5.7 in the expected rebound margin. Jacksonville State posted a 45.7% offensive rebound rate, which would be the fourth straight opponent to hit 40% on the offensive rebounding. One of the things that I think we were complimentary of this team in the month of November was the fact that they were better at securing rebounds. That has just gone by the wayside once the calendar flipped to December. It's understandable to a degree when you're giving up offensive rebounds to like Kansas.
They got big dudes.
Yeah, big dudes, athletic dudes. Okay. But getting 40% to LIU and Jacksonville State. Now, granted, like Jacksonville State's a pretty athletic team. They're in Conference USA. That they've got some high major transfers. They've got some talent on the roster. Like I think you and I and Watkins, we all sort of expected this to be pretty uncomfortable a game to watch. It ended up being very uncomfortable. And like part of that is kind of going in not that dissimilar from like Dan Monson or even like Dave Smart. Like that this guy can coach. He's got a proven track record of being an excellent basketball coach. He's got some players. Pierre Kidd is getting like NBA draft talk. I don't know if he's necessarily he's not like a first round draft pick, but he's getting NBA draft talk.
He could play himself into an Exhibit 10 deal, which ain't bad coming out of
Yeah.
Jacksonville State.
Yeah. So like this isn't a team that's like devoid of talent. They've got things that work for them. They got the pace way down. They did not turn the ball over at a crazy rate. They only had 12 turnovers. Missouri offset that. Their sort of inability to turn Jacksonville State over. So 12 turnovers is roughly 19.5% on the possessions there. Missouri only turned the ball over 3 times.
Yeah.
So like I went back. I don't know if you knew this or not, but we actually have a StatHead account. Yeah. I signed up for one. StatHead's great for like historical, like records. And I went back and I could not find a game in Missouri's history. I did only go back to I think 1965 or something like that.
That seems reasonable.
But it could not find a time where the Tigers recorded as few as 3 turnovers in a game. There were 3, I think, games of 4 turnovers. One of those, I believe, if I remember correctly, was the game at Allen Fieldhouse, the last time that they played. Missouri played very good offensive basketball game that day. And the other 2 were Dennis Gates games. So one earlier this year was Mississippi Valley State, and then I want to say it was 2 years ago. Not last year, but the year before. So, hey, like you set a program record for fewest turnovers. You didn't secure enough rebounds to maybe give yourself a more comfortable margin, but overall, like I think this was a good game to sort of get them sort of tested, especially going into a game where they're going to be tested.
Yeah, the concerning thing is that you can't chalk this off as a one night sort of thing. It's the 4th game in a row where securing rebounds has been a problem. LIU, maybe if you were looking for a caveat, it could be they played a crap load of zone in that game and harder to rebound out of a zone. They played a lot of small ball 5s too. They, in that game. So small ball 5s plus zone, I can understand, why the rebound rate was a little bit lower there. Cal, they were abused on the glass, but they had some physical bigs there that could do that and can make that work pretty well. Kansas had Badunga and had Hunter, and Bill Self's offensive rebound teams tend to rebound well on the offensive end anyway. So that's a strength for Bill's teams. I think the thing last night that was frustrating was, sometimes if you lose around the rim, I will understand that. But there were a lot of 50-50 balls that MU simply failed to track. Didn't even really make a firm effort until the final 5 minutes to really track with a lot of intensity. And look, I can forgive you if you are checking out on somebody, you both go up for a rebound and you don't secure it. Like, that happens. I think coaches are fine if you make an effort. If you're following the flight, you hit your guy, you go up and you do all the work and you just lose a 50-50 battle in the air, fine. I think what will drive the staff nuts is how many balls kicked long, landed around the free throw line, extended out to a wing. There's a Tiger maybe a half like stride, maybe 1.5 strides away. That's not even like selling their body out to get there. Not even like taking a step towards a loose ball, towards a 50-50 ball. There were 6 or 7 rebounds like that last night where the expectation there is not like you're going to like put your body in a painful position. It's you just have to turn and make a short distance sprint to compete for a 50-50 ball. Like, and there were a couple of dagger 3s off of those too. So like, that's an effort thing. I think that's been the one thing when I've watched this team is, against what did we see against Eastern Washington? There wasn't the consistent defensive engagement on the ball. This game was for us, against Lindenwood. What was the slip up? They didn't value the ball with handling. Viewers, if you're watching this, you can see some of the 50-50 balls they are not tracking. And then, so like, I think that's been my thing.
Well, so yeah, and this is not me really picking on Tamar, but I've expressed to you like privately, like
There are three guys
Okay.
watching that ball come
Yeah,
off long.
there's plenty of watching here. Mark is in a position to collect a close rebound, but he's he's boxed this guy out. The ball goes long.
Over his head. Yeah.
So like even though his guy's the guy who gets the rebound, it's not this isn't on Mark Mitchell. Like this is on Tamar Bates.
Yeah.
And standing and watching. And as it like this is the thing that drives you crazy as a former basketball coach. As a basketball coach, like you see the ball, go get the ball, and like I'm looking at the screen now, and it's Ant standing, Trent standing, Tamara standing, I guess expecting Mark Mitchell to get the rebound, and Mark's feet are right at the circle, which on a long shot, that's not going to be an area that's going to get you a lot of rebounds.
Yeah, that's not a short area rebound.
So guys, go get the ball. So this is definitely something that like I think I do think that Dennis downplays it in the media. I don't know what he's saying in the locker room or on the sidelines. I can't imagine that makes you happy because like that is effort, and that should be cleaned up.
Yeah.
And your first SEC game is going into a place, and they are going to throw an endless string of bodies at the rim.
Yeah.
You better be ready to go get the ball against Auburn, or they are going to
run you out of the building.
Yeah, like out of the building. Yeah, it could get ugly quickly. And Auburn has beaten a lot of really good teams really badly, like in recent years.
Like Kilman Sampson said, if they played Houston, they bodied them. Like if you're bodying Houston, you're pretty tough. And if Missouri's not going to go get 50-50 balls against Jacksonville State, then...
So you definitely, and it's very easy to go back and watch like the Kansas game and to see a different level of intensity. And so you better be able to, because like the SEC is brutal, and we're going to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I did some research. I know I'm not one to do the pre-pod research, but I was curious because I did a little bit of a thread, a quick check on Blue Sky, the Rockin' Plus Blue Sky handle, just sort of looking at the SEC. I want to say over the weekend, and just really enlightening like numbers on how successful the league has been. So I have an update, and I have it even like more broke down, but like you have Illinois coming up, and you have a reprieve, and then there are no breaks for the next 2 months.
None. There's no off night. There will be no off nights.
South Carolina just beat Clemson, who was 25th in the country, and beat Kentucky. So that's per the analytics, the worst team in the SEC is South Carolina.
This is a fact I would throw out. If you go to Torvik and you were to look at conference records against teams in the top 25 of Torvik's record, the SEC is 15-8. 15-8. They have the Big East is 5-10. The Big 12 is 8-18. The Big 10 is 7-21, and the ACC is 4-26. It's not even close. Like against quality opponents, it's not even close. If you go to the top 50, the SEC is 27-14. Big East 12-20. Big 10 17-38. Big 12 12-28. ACC 11-48. No off nights. No off nights at all. Like that, our friend Corey Keys used to say, there's a lot of good coaches and a lot of good players, but somebody's got to finish 12. Like Mizzou's 49th, 50th in KenPom. That's a big jump from last year. That's really good. But you go look at the SEC page, you're like, they might be 12th or 13th. Like, And
now that still might get you a tournament bid. Like that's
it might
how
get you on the bubble, but I think that's the thing. I think we're so used to thinking about like top 50 teams in the SEC are, oh, you're the 6, 7, or 8 team in the SEC. You might still be fighting to stay out of Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's just how deep the league is. And so to bring it back, you can't have nights where you check out mentally at all, or you're going to get buried. You're going to get buried. So I think that's been the one thing is we've seen them get up for Kansas. I don't know if they were quite as locked in for Cal. I think there was they had played a bunch of bye games, and Cal respected comparatively was a major jump for them. So maybe there was like just some growing pains getting back into it, but they've played writ large, pretty well in non-con. They've pretty much done what we expected them to do. They've met the baselines. I wrote, about the rotations week. They've got a lot of flexibility in how they can play. They are going to get Caleb Grill back. They are objectively in a better spot than they were a year ago, but there have been 2 or 3 games where you can legitimately question whether the focus and engagement was there.
Yeah.
And you and I watch enough of the SEC to know there are a lot more teams in the SEC where that's not a question. So I think if you have a concern, I think that it's not yes, rebounding is a very specific thing. It needs to be improved, but it's what rebounding is reflective of potentially that is probably more worrisome or potentially more worrisome to me than, as a one specific niche issue on this podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we can kind of continue on the SEC topic, and then maybe look at Illinois before we get out of here. Against teams ranked outside of the top 100, the SEC has 100 wins to 1 loss. That 1 loss is South Carolina opened the season with a loss at home to North Florida. SEC teams at home are 101-2. Their losses are South Carolina's North Florida loss and Texas lost to UConn. Neutral site floors, they're 39-12.
Yeah.
True road environments, 12-6. And I'm not even giving them credit for wins like Texas A&M beating Purdue, and that was in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
Because
I'd say that's a neutral. That's a neutral.
Yeah, like it's KenPom classifies it as a semi away. I'm not giving you credit for that. Like that's a neutral.
Yeah.
So 39-12 in neutrals. That's a 76.5% win percentage, and you're 12-6 true road games, which is winning 66.6% of the time for those that can't do that math. Wins record against the top 25 in KenPom, 13-9, 26-50, 14-5, 51-75, 8-4, 76-100. They're 18-1.
Yeah,
they have 1 loss to teams ranked. So what's important about that number is that's like where everybody is above. Like the SEC, everybody is above 76. Like the lowest ranked team, I think, at when I was putting this together was South Carolina was 68.
Yeah.
So 68 and higher. So the total there, 53 wins to 19 losses.
Yeah. They are. It's an absolutely monstrous, in a good way, performance in non-con. I think we've also reached the point now where the people who are legitimately saying this is an ESPN creation, it's a narrative. It's like, no. There's plenty of factual evidence that the SEC is kicking the living crap out of everybody. It's
just
yeah,
an absolute annihilation. They have a 73.6% win percentage against the top 100.
yeah.
Like that's crazy.
And it's only going to get better in terms of like resume quality once they start playing each other. Like I think that's the one thing that if you're a Missouri fan, it's terrifying because it's all top 70, top 70 teams in your conference. But presumably, if you're Missouri and you beat Illinois and you are 12-1 and you do not have a quad 3 loss or a quad and you have no bad losses, and honestly, like Missouri does not have any really even questionable performances. Like I looked at it today, like they aren't leaking points in garbage time. They're mostly like their worst performance in a bye game was underperforming the margin by 12 against Eastern Washington. Otherwise, they've usually been within 2 possessions of all the forecasted margins, which isn't bad. It's like Missouri is going to get out of non-con, potentially with 2 quad 1 wins, 2 quad 1A wins, depending on how those teams break. The non-con would hurt them in seeding discussions, but if they got to 8-10 in SEC play with a 12-1 non-con record, they're gonna get a tournament bid probably. That's just how deep the league is. Will it be a great seed? No, but they would probably have a really strong case for getting in.
Depending on what your wins and losses are, and not even what your losses are, but depending on what your wins are, I think you can get in this league at 7-11.
If your non-con SOS is pretty good, I think you're going to need the committee's going to be really skittish about taking somebody that far off. Now, if you've played a legit non-con where you're, not quite Alabama's non-con, but you haven't loaded up to the degree that Missouri has on quad 4s, I think you'd have a reasonable argument for it. But if you're Missouri, given that you're probably going to have 8 or 9 quad 4s on your schedule, you're going to need to be close to 8-8, 8-10, or 9-9, I think, to feel good about getting a bid there. Because I think I'm looking at it now. I haven't updated it for a couple of days, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're looking at 12 quad 1 games for Missouri, and then the rest are all quad 2s. So you're going to get, if Missouri had 2 quad 1 wins, again, assuming things go well against Illinois, you probably need to find 4 quad 1 wins in SEC play. If you get to 20 wins overall, 6 quad 1s, most SEC teams have made the tournament with that. Now, if you're 8-10 and you have that, will the committee be like, no, or are they going to be like, you played a gauntlet, you didn't take bad losses, you mostly handled your business against quad 4s, and you got quality wins. And also, you're probably going to have some okay quad 2s in there as well. So I think that's the point. That's what I think the pivot point to Illinois is. For Missouri, set aside bragging rights, set aside, whatever it means to alums in the metro area. You get a second quad 1 win here, it really eases the strain on the non-con. On the SEC slate. You're going to have a lot of opportunities, but if you're a competent basketball team, you should be able to find 4 quad 1 wins in this kind of deep SEC. And if you get 5 or 6 quad 1s and you get to 19 or 20 wins overall, I think you're going to feel like you have a pretty compelling case on Selection Sunday. So Illinois is big just because it's one less game you've got to dig out in SEC play.
Here's what I'm going to counter with, because I disagree with you slightly. I think that the SEC and the strength of the SEC is going to weigh so heavily because of how the SEC has performed in non-conference play that it is going to put the committee in a really, really tough spot of they're going to very likely be taking 12 SEC teams and possibly, depending on how things play out, as many as 13. Like, I don't think you can realistically turn down the even a 7-11 or an 8-10 SEC team, even if they have like non-conference strength of schedule where they racked up wins, uh, because of how tough that conference is, and give someone in a different league like the ACC, who got absolutely slaughtered by the SEC, uh, the same kind of grace that maybe they have in the past.
Yeah.
At this point, we're looking at different levels of power conferences, and not every power conference is built the same. Like I think the SEC is as a really or actual chance to send as many as 13 teams. And again, like this is all like it. If there's like 6 teams in the SEC are all like 4 and 13 or something, like okay, like the math changes significantly. But assuming that things kind of even out and we have a 15-3 to 5 and 13 range that you're going to fall into, I think at 7-11, like you have a realistic chance of very, maybe you're playing in Dayton, but I think your resume is going to be stronger than a lot of other bubble teams because of how quality those 7 wins are going to look.
And I noted this on the forum this week, and this is where I will give you credit for this. A lot of those mid-major leagues that have kind of sat around the cut line, I think of a lot of like the Nevadas or the Colorado States or the Boise States, who in recent years have been shuttled to Dayton. So the Mountain West gets 5 teams in, but 2 are in Dayton. Or the Missouri Valley gets like a Drake in, and they get slid to Dayton like they did in 21. Those leagues like the Mountain West, the MVC, aside from Drake, and like the A10 are down a little bit. So will you have as many mid-major plus programs floating at the cut line there, muddying the water?
Uh-huh.
So if you don't have as many of those teams there, I think, we're not talking about Dayton. We're not talking about San Diego State. We're not talking about St. Mary's. We're not talking about Drake right now. And we're definitely not talking about Dayton. So there's probably 5 mid-major plus programs right now that are kind of, you would say, are in pretty good shape at large wise at this juncture. If that pot doesn't get any bigger, then yes, I think it makes it easier to take 13 SEC teams because you're not having to do what the committee has done in the past couple of years, which is weigh up teams that had a bunch of quad 1 shots and didn't take them in a high major league versus a quality mid-major plus program that has really good, resume metrics, but didn't get as many quad one chances in their league. They can't just dump both those teams there. So I think it's going to create some openings. But again, we're in mid-December. It's just now kind of reasonable to talk about bracketology in some way. I think you're right. If the SEC doesn't have 3 or 4 teams that are at rock bottom, 4 or 5 wins, and the mid-major plus leagues are a little bit weaker than they have been, and mind you, a lot of those leagues got absolutely rated last spring. The AAC got rated. The WCC got rated a little bit. If those leagues are down, it's going to create some openings there. Now, I can't wait to hear the ACC talk about, we need to get on. Nope. You have 3 teams right now. You have Duke, you have Clemson, Pitt, and then it's just a wash after that. So we'll see what they do, and see how things shake out. But, given what the committee's done, in the past, sometimes they punish teams in really deep conferences. If you have like 16 quad 1 shots and you get 4 or 5 wins, they're like, well, you had a lot of opportunities here and you biffed them. So, because that happened to Oklahoma, it's happened to Syracuse before. There's a double-edged sword between, a lot of opportunities versus did you do enough with them? And as Watkins and I will say, the committee just does what it wants around the cut line.
Right. Like that is the other thing. And you and I have like talked in the past, and I'm actually completely like, I'm not completely unopposed to the idea of like having like a power conference like kind of cutoff where you pretty much have to say, okay, like you have to be at this point in a power conference. Like you cannot, Like probably before this year, I would have said 500 and been okay with it. I'm not sure I feel that way this year, and this has nothing to do with Missouri. This is just I have never seen a conference do this. Like this is like
If they
and
keep it up, it's going to be the best season in the Kim Pom era.
it's basically like what the Big 12 was doing before it expanded, only it is expanded. Like that's the difference between what the SEC is doing so far this year and what the Big 12 did. Is the Big 12 was doing that with like 10 teams, 11 teams. The SEC is doing this with 16 teams, and they're all really good. So yes, it makes it difficult, and we do actually have a couple games to kind of keep an eye on tonight because Alabama is at North Dakota. They're actually losing in the first half, and Oklahoma is taking on Michigan. This is probably Oklahoma's biggest test to date in the Jumpman Invitational.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma's undefeated 10-0. Michigan's 8-2. Michigan's very good.
But Michigan needs a quality win, I think, as well.
Yeah, they need it. They need a good win. The SEC has been very unkind to giving out quality wins. So I think it's some interesting things to kind of keep an eye on. For anybody who's watching along with us tonight. But let's turn our attention to Illinois because I don't want to be here for an hour and a half talking about the NCAA tournament. Have you gotten a chance to watch the Illini multiple times?
I have. I've watched the full game against Alabama and watched a half against Tennessee. Watched about 10 minutes against Oakland, and then I was going back through today and just doing individual player clip review or guys. But I'll probably go back and watch one full game, their last full game, just to see how they're looking. But they have skewed young.
It's an interesting move in the construction of the roster,
which I sort of like. I like conceptually what Brad has done here. Like I think one of his assistants spent the last 2 years basically shuttling to Europe and building a Rolodex of connections over there. Brad has gone over to watch a lot of next gen events, a lot of basketball academy stuff Barca and a lot of Euro League teams, their under 18 groups. That's a lot of legwork. It's a lot of airline miles, but it paid off with them getting Kasper Jankonis, their point guard, and Tomislav Ivicic. That was big. And then they, Will Riley wanted to speed up his draft clock. And, Brad said, we need pros. You're a future pro. We'll take you. So they have 3 pros on their roster. They are all very young. But Ivicic and Jankonis have played on basically EuroLeague B teams, the JV pro teams over there. Will Riley has played in a really good developmental system out of Canada. Jankonis and Riley are both going to probably be first-round picks. I haven't seen Ivicic really high on draft boards yet, but they've got 3 dudes, and then Brad went and got a really good, solid supporting cast around them. Kylan Boswell's a really good, high major point guard. Trey White's a really good wing defender. Ben Hummerkaus is kind of a really good screener, replacer, connector, spacer type of guy. He put up big numbers at Evansville, but he's kind of just spackle for them. And I mean that in the best sense possible for them. And, they go 7 or 8 deep, but there's no doubt how they've built this roster. They've gone young, but it's some high-end youth that's on this roster. And hyper skilled as well. So it's been interesting to watch, kind of Illinois and BYU zag a little bit and kind of dip into that international market and kind of steal a little bit of Arizona's blueprint and kind of go abroad to find some guys. They can be fun to watch when they got it rolling.
They've been a little up and down. They are currently 16th in KenPom. They have gone up. They walloped Eastern Illinois to open the season. While SIUE after that, they sort of squeaked by Oakland. Didn't really shoot the ball that well against Oakland.
Oakland got physical with them too. Oakland got physical with them.
And then Alabama basically kind of held them at an arm's length for most of that game. That was a semi-away game.
Yeah.
And Maryland Eastern Shore, big walloping. Little Rock, big walloping. And then Arkansas.
That was a terrible game plan by Arkansas.
So, yeah, that was a John Calipari special. Like, we're going to do what we do kind of thing. 13-point win for Illinois. They scored 90. It looked very good. That was on Thanksgiving Day. I'm sure a lot of people were watching football. I was watching that game. That's the only real game that I've kind of seen them play. I did watch a little bit of the Alabama game. Then they went on the road and lost at Northwestern.
I'll probably rewatch that game.
They came back home to beat Wisconsin, and then invited Tennessee under their home court. And if you pay any attention to college basketball, you probably saw how that game ended up. But they essentially lost on the last second shot. Very, very ugly game. Very, very sort of brutal. I think we're very accustomed to watching Rick Barnes teams on defense, and it was very much a Rick Barnes defensive game.
And I think that's your through line for Illinois. Alabama was very physical with them. Their guards were very physical at the point of attack. The ball screen coverages were a little bit more at the level and drop, but they have Cliff Omoruyi in drop, so that's passable. But their guards got into them. Northwestern's guards got into them. They played their bigs at the level of the screen, which is tough because Tomislav Visic wants to pop in space. It's harder passing angles. It's harder for them to kind of get their action going. And we know how physical Tennessee is. So I think that's, I'll probably watch. I haven't dived in to really watch Illinois on the defensive end yet, but I think on the offensive end, teams that have gotten into them have made them uncomfortable and have, taken them out of rhythm, which sounds weird because, Kasparas is 6'5", like solidly built. Visic is not, a spindly Euro stretch five. He's got some mass to him. Riley's a stick. Riley's a stick, but they're two guys in their pick and roll combo are physically developed, and people say, well, European basketball's pretty physical. It's pretty physical off the ball. There's some soft whistles on the ball in European action. So, but teams that have gotten into Kasparas, teams that have gotten into a Visic a little bit, I think have unsettled them because they are, and we can talk about how they play in the half court, but they're very much a rhythm and flow type of team. And if you get into them, if you bump them, if you make them uncomfortable, I think it really messes with them. And then on the defensive end, their defensive numbers look great, but I think they've had to compromise a little bit on how they want to play because when they played probably defense that we're more accustomed to from Brad, they got torched by Ole Miss. They got torched by Alabama. So they've I think, adapted to a little bit more of a gap sounds scheme on defense. But I think the through line teams that have had success against them have tried to body them a little bit. And they've tried to get in and make them feel them a little bit. We'll see if Missouri would try and go that route. But I think that's sort of my initial impression of when they've played poorly, they've been able to have that freedom and flow. But when you make them grind a little bit, they can come unstuck. I don't know if that's sort of how you've, if that's been your takeaway, considering that you watched most of the Arkansas game where Arkansas did almost none of that.
Yeah. Well, so, one thing that I do think is they do have good blanks.
Great positional size.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they're, like you're kind of talking about, all that physical, all that tough. So I think there's an opportunity there. Their defensive numbers are good. I'm always a little hesitant about anybody whose defensive numbers are really good. Their effective field goal percentage, their 3-point defense is like they're forcing teams at like they're fifth in the country, 26.4% from three. Like, how much of that is defense? Because like we're believers in the numbers, and the numbers say that like like 3-point defense is pretty random. So it seems to me like there is a possibility that if you get a few threes to fall, you could really kind of put some game pressure on them. They don't shoot the ball as well as you might think. On top of that,
It's a volume game for them defensively. If you look at their rim defense numbers, they're legit. They're top 20 in rim defense and at rim defense in terms of defending the rim. They're very good. They're very good at rebounding the ball. And I think a lot of it for them is we're going to, I think I said on the forums at Rockin' Plus, you might see some things that are reminiscent about what you saw with Jacksonville State. Gap sound, keep the ball in front, really make it tough to finish, turn rim finishes into near rim finishes, crash the boards, get the ball to Casper, push, and try and get into early clock and flow. They're going to want to play quick, but they're going to want to do it in early clock, first 7 seconds off of a defensive board. But yeah, the shooting numbers, Riley's shooting it okay off the, I think I looked at it today. I think he's 36.8% of catch and shoot threes. That's not bad. Kasparis, though, is not a spot up shooter at all. He's 2 of 9 on catch and shoot threes. The real thing that I think they were probably banking on was Henriquez becoming that kind of stretch 4 guy that, could sort of become a secondary screener, connector. And, if help got sucked to the midline, they could pitch it to him, and his defender would have, sagged in or flattened out, and he could bang in jumpers. He's only shooting around 33% from 3. Trey White's not a 3-point shooter. He's a defensive specialist. So, yeah, I agree that the 3-point shooting for them is much more of a numbers game. The 2-point shooting, you'd think with their size and length would be better. 94th, that's not awful, but it's not elite. But they're also only 40% of their offense comes on 2s.
Yeah.
But I think, we can talk how their offense sets up. Tomislav Visic does not want to post. That guy hates posting up. He's not good at it. He's not efficient at it. His thing is he wants to use one dribble to get to a hook shot over his left shoulder, or he wants to play to a drop step. And when he's had success, it's been against bigs like Grant Nelson who don't want to play the 5. Or it's been against smaller mid-major bigs.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff Omoruyi bodied him up a little bit. Tennessee got into him a little bit. Northwestern got into him a little bit. Josh Gray is here for one reason only, to get into other guys a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of your thing there. Now, the other thing about Tomislav is he's going to play in pick and rolls. You know what he wants to do? He wants to pop. It's what he wants to do. He wants to pop, get 2 feet, 2 steps away, get the feet on balance, and pull. And if you play drop coverage with your big, you're going to give him what he wants. I'm going to go back and watch the Northwestern game because you know what Northwestern did? They had Matt Nicholson play at the level of the screen, try and help string Yankonis out for an extra dribble so his man could recover. And then they made the bet on I think Matt Nicholson can get back and at least make it a tougher contest for Visic.
Mm-hmm.
If you play straight drop coverage, Tomoslav's going to feast. He's just going to set up. He's going to wait until Casper's gotten to the middle of the lane. They're going to throw it back behind him. And he's going to shoot a jumper. So I think that's going to be Mizzou's challenge here is how do they handle that sort of 2-man game? But Visic wants to pick and pop. That's his bread and butter. So if you can make him shoot contested jumpers, if you can make Henriquez shoot contested jumpers, I think you're going to be able to take some of the juice out of it for him. Riley can shoot it well. But I think what you need to do is you need to make it contested jumpers. It needs to not be stuff where they can get in rhythm and in flow. And I think, you can make life tough for them. But we'll see how they sort of adjust that ball screen coverage because that's all Illinois wants to do. They want to. I think you've seen it's just a conveyor belt of ball screens, basically. Different kinds of actions, but It's
And
ball.
Brad Underwood's really shown that he can, he can get creative when it comes to offensive setup. He's going to do what he thinks his team is going to be best at. He's adaptable, and this is where he thinks his team is best. This is a projected.
This is what he said in the preseason. We're not running offense anymore. The side to side, swing it. We're completely out of that business. Not here. It's pick and rolls.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they're 23rd in pick and roll usage rate. And they're one of the leaders in pick and pops. Brad wasn't lying. Brad told you what he was going to do. Can you defend ball screens? Do you trust your guys to handle that?
So this is a projected 5-point loss per Ken Palm. 32% chance to win. I feel like this is a game where Missouri's going to need to make shots. But there's a lot of similarities to the level of toughness that the elder statesmen on the roster can maybe show up with, and hopefully you'll get a similar approach to how they sort of took on Kansas, and really made Kansas's life hell in the offensive half court, at least for 25-30 minutes. I think this is a winnable game. I don't know that I'm going to make any predictions though, because Missouri has certainly shown that they've yet to find the consistency button, and when they are going well, they look great. They're also prone to not looking so great. Hopefully, the better version shows up on Sunday.
Yeah, this would be a game where I would want Tony on Casper early. Mostly because I think this is not a dig at Ant. I think Ant's a very good on-ball defender, but Ant wants to turn guys. He wants to turn you, he wants you to expose the ball, he wants you to give it up so he can create his turnover. Casper Jankonis has seen some strong on-ball defenders like that. He can snake it. He's great off the reset. He can get at you. You need a guy who I think is going to be sound, stable, stay in front, sit down, fight over ball screens, make him work. Just make him work. And, when Casper's has turned the ball over, it's been trying to make tough passes in traffic, trying to find rollers, trying to make jump passes to the corner. The actual turnover rate and steal rate for him is pretty low. What I think you want to do is you want to be physical with him at the point of attack, make it harder for him, make him get to dribble counters, make him have to see tight windows, make him have to see a lot of length, and have to make some challenging passes, and trust that your size and your physical abilities are going to be able to create deflections and turnovers. And then, I think Ant makes sense, on Kylan Boswell, because Boswell's a guy who doesn't shoot it very well off the catch. You can close out short to him. You can give him a buffer. In pull-ups, he's not very good. So I think just the level of risk is lower with Boswell. And I think you get a bigger guard at the point of attack with Tony. Your wings are going to have to be dialed in, to make sure that they're finding Riley and closing out. But realistically, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the bigs. They could use Josh a lot against Kansas because Hunter still wanted to play on the block. And, Avicic is going to be tough because he's going to want to pop. So are you going to, want to say, hey, let's go small. Let's have, Aiden out there and, have him react and have him sort of be the guy. But then do you trust that you have enough size to go rebound and enough solidity and enough, discipline in those ball screen actions? So I think I'm like you. I think Missouri can get a win here if they have, the right match, if they have the right matchups, and if there's a consistency of focus. I think that was the biggest thing I took away from that Kansas game was, until Dennis had to start resting guys midway through the second half, they were absolutely locked into the game plan, locked in, consistent. Like they were doing everything with purpose. They were tagging rollers with purpose. They were scrambling and cross match, X outs with purpose. If that team shows up, I think they can beat Illinois. If that team with that level of intensity, that focus, that commitment to executing a game plan shows up, I think they can get them. I really do. I think this team, when it wants to, can play with a physicality and an edge that can take Illinois off a little bit. But we got to see him do it. So that's a hedge from me, but I can see the pathway for them if they can just sit down and do what they need to do.
The swings in this game the last couple of years have been interesting. Missouri blew Illinois out, or Illinois blew
blowouts.
Yeah, Missouri out 3 years ago. Missouri blew Illinois out 2 years ago. Illinois blew Missouri out last year. I look at maybe Missouri. It's our turn to blow them out. I would be happy with a blowout. I think this will probably much more likely be a tightly contested game, though. If the score, if you can keep Illinois out of the 80s, I like our chances.
Yeah, I think you want this game to be. I keep mentioning it. I think you want this game to be one where Illinois doesn't have flow. That's my biggest thing here is when I've watched Caspers play well, it's because if people want to look it up, go watch the Arkansas game and just how easily they got into their sets, how easily they got their ball screen set. And then Arkansas just said, okay, we're going to play drop and we're just going to let Caspers pick us apart. Like you can't do that. I think you got to, if he's an NBA draft pick, if he is as good as, scouts say he is, make him feel you, make him have to get into the bag, make him have to snake, make him have to play with step overs, make him have to try it in different finishing angles with extension and scoops, make him have to use every tool in the toolkit. Don't just come down, get set, let them get into their flow. If they're going to beat you, make them beat you by going to everything that they've got in the, every club in the bag. Because teams that have been physical with them have made them have to play that way. And I think that's ultimately going to be the solution here, which again, to bring it back in circular fashion, you got to rebound. Like that's an effort focused thing. You got to go rebound. If you play great defense and you're physical and you don't check out and go into possession, what was the point? So we'll see if they do it though. We'll see how they perform.
Some score updates. Vanderbilt over the Citadel 105-53. Michigan coming down to the end of the first half up 41-35 over Oklahoma. And Alabama's down 3 at the half at North Dakota. North Dakota's 4-8, by the way. I'm not going to look up who they've beaten because I also wanted to say that the Mizzou women's basketball team, first loss in a while. They lost to Oral Roberts at home tonight, 76-63. And for our crossover fans, anybody interested in the football stuff, Louisiana Monroe running back Ahmad Hardy committed to Missouri. Little known fact about Hardy, he was a true freshman this year and was like second in the country in broken tackles. So a lot of zone read, says Dan Keegan.
A lot of broken tackles trying to get out of Monroe. To get out of Northwest Louisiana.
He's coming to Como next year. So yeah, stay tuned to Rockin' Plus, Rockin' Nation for all the post commitment coverage of that young man.
North Dakota, number 300 in Kimpom, 24-point dog tonight.
Oof. Better get your things together, Nate.
Nate's team's not playing defense. They're not playing defense the way they need to.
So we'll be back post Illinois. After Illinois, Missouri has a week off before they face Alabama State, and then SEC plays here. So we'll come back and talk about the Illinois game. So everybody enjoy your holiday season, I guess, and we'll talk before Christmas. So go Mizzou, beat Illinois, MIZ. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.